Hello and welcome to another Dual Rule update. If you're waiting for other kinds of videos from me, there is a vlog coming hopefully next week that will go into that a bit. For now, on Saturday, it's been a month since our last Dual Rule stream, so it's time again. In the last stream, we mentioned that we might be taking a break with the story and or with the streams, but I am happy to report that we will not be doing that. We will keep working on the dual rule. The only change from what we might have planned before is that we will not be spending the streams plotting, because we're currently plotting the second half of the story, but Matilda has a lot left to do in the first half, since her first half is changing a lot more than mine, and we don't want to stress her. So we will keep streaming, and the streams will be about fixing problems that we've run into up until now, and maybe deep diving in some world building or plot points that we need to know more about right now. As for what I've been doing since last time, I have gone through the entirety of Nium's side of the first half of the story and edited it. Not completely. I focused on fixing things that I could fix right then and there, like adding or removing scenes, changing things to better fit the new timeline, and so on. But I do still have a bunch of notes on things that need to be foreshadowed or mentioned earlier in the story. One of these things is that Nium has to talk about shapeshifters. Nium gets sick at a certain point in the story, and during his recovery, Tev, who is a dragon at the time, may or may not be shifting into human form in order to be able to help him properly. But he doesn't show himself in human form to Nium, and the reason for this, in my mind, is that he's not sure how Nium would react, and in order for him to be extra uncertain about that, I want Nium to have indicated that he is not a fan of shapeshifters, not in a huge shapeshifters are evil way, but rather in a more offhanded microaggression kind of way, something that indicates that Nium grew up in a society where shapeshifters are considered bad, but not that he himself would instantly kill a shapeshifter if he met one, or knew that he met one. I do have a conversation in mind, I just need to fit it in somewhere before he gets sick. The conversation is basically Nium saying that someone was acting shifty, and Tev not understanding what that means, and so Nium says something along the lines of, shifty, it means acting suspicious, like you shouldn't trust them. I think it refers to shapeshifters. So that, and maybe some other offhanded comment I need to add into the story. And then there are a couple of things that I need to add in or around Inferno Valley, because when Nium gets to the lightning trial and when he finds Lid there with her arm in really bad shape, we need him to know what to do about that. So he has some herbs that can help, and we decided that he got those from Inferno Valley, which makes sense for several reasons. First, because Inferno Valley is where Nium encounters healing and herbs and things like that, and second, because he befriends the healer that helps him and Bodhi, and third, because when he leaves Inferno Valley, he is given a pack of things that the nomads think he might find useful. And that could very well include some herbs and stuff. So I need to add in that pack contain stuff like that. And I need to mention that Nium actually does learn stuff about healing from his friend there, and that he remembers these things, because Nium has a notoriously terrible memory when it comes to most things outside of maps and archive stuff. Basically, he remembers things that interest him, but not so much things that he should remember. So I need to make sure to show that he is interested in healing and or what different plants and herbs can do, which makes sense, because he has a very strong connection to his plant powers. And then there are smaller things that I need to mention, like Nium needs to figure out how to handle his ground powers, because what I've written now is mostly that he can't figure them out, and then he suddenly uses them for the lightning trial, and uses them pretty well. So, yeah, those are some kinds of things that I need to find places for, but other than that, I am pretty done with this part of the story for now. Like I said, Matilda still has some work to do. She'll talk about that in her update, which is, of course, linked below. As for the stream on Saturday, which is, of course, also linked down below, don't forget to click the reminder for that, I have a couple of things I would like to talk about. Firstly, I'd like to talk a bit about clothes. What kind of clothes do people in this world wear? What kind of clothes might the nomads wear and the shapeshifters? I have written a couple of times that Nium notices that certain people's clothes are strange, but I would like to know more so I can give a couple of details at least on how they're strange. And secondly, I want to talk about equality and LGBTQ+ in this world. During our world building for this story, 2 years ago now, wow, we talked a little bit about equality in terms of men versus women and a bit about ethnicities, given that this is a very, very isolated place. And yeah, we talked about a bunch of things like that, and we kind of reluctantly said that while men and women were pretty much considered equal, women who can give birth are kind of discouraged to have jobs that are too strenuous or dangerous, which I guess kind of makes sense, but I have noticed that I have a really hard time actually writing it like that. So way back when, in my teens, I was like any other writer, and I mimicked my favorite authors and favorite books as a way of learning to write. And this meant that my stories were full of men, because those were the kinds of books that I was reading. And when I realized that and wanted to change it, I made it a point to put women into the story, into every story. It was a very deliberate choice at first, but after many years of writing like that, it's become much more natural for me to present a mix of both men and women. Which means that even in this story, that's what I've done. The guards, for example, speaking of strenuous and dangerous work, have been both men and women, which I like. I'm glad I've done that, but it doesn't quite fit with what we said, so I want to discuss that. And I don't think Matilda is going to be very upset about making it more equal, because, yeah. Also, the LGBTQ+ thing, that was again something I realized a few years into my writing journey, that not only was I mostly representing men, I also almost exclusively represented straight cis people. And since I'm not a straight cis person, and I wish there was more representation of people who are not, I wanted to change that too. So nowadays, all of my stories have LGBTQ+ representation. Again, it was a deliberate choice at first, and after that it's kind of happened. But in this story, we don't have any outspoken romances among our main characters. We do have representation of a throuple in Lid's parents, but that's about it. Now, I don't think I'm the only one who ships Nium and Tev, and maybe that's why when I wrote the first time that they properly meet, when Tev is in human form, I wasn't sure how to write Nium's reaction to him. Like, what does he think the first time he sees this person? Is Nium into guys? And if so, is he aware of it? Is it a thing that he knows can happen? Is it something that's frowned upon so that he feels shame over it, or is it considered normal? We know that among humans, it's assumed that people are cis. Nium certainly uses he, him pronouns for anyone he perceives as male, and she, her for anyone he perceives as female, and only uses they, them when he has no way of guessing. But I don't know if it's assumed that people are straight. Nor do I know people's attitudes towards non-cis individuals either. So it's something I want to talk about. Maybe also talk about disability representation. If nothing else, Lid is going to lose her arm, so it would probably be good to know what the general attitude is towards people who are not able-bodied. So yeah, potentially deep and complicated discussions for Saturday. I hope to see you there. This is definitely a subject, several subjects, where more voices would be absolutely wonderful.